Then she got too big, too much was going on for her. So I brought on somebody else. And I was like, okay, what part of the job do you need help with? And she's like, well, booking the travel, that takes the most time. That's the most intense. Managing the agency is something that's more routine. So booking the travel is where I need help. So I brought in a full-time travel advisor. I said, you're going to come in to sell travel and nothing else. And then my assistant agency manager could then decide how much of that she wanted to do. Once she gave up the selling the travel, she wasn't happy. So we brought that back on, and I brought on an admin to help with the administrative side of things. So it's, yeah,
my gosh. So you have not only cloned yourself, which is about multiplying your time, your impact, and your money, but you've also enabled your team to clone themselves. Yeah. They're multiplying their effort, which multiplies the organizational effort. This is music to my ears. Glad to be here with you today. We have something exciting happening. It is not very often on the Right on Time podcast, for some reason, that we have a client of mine. This is incredible. This conversation is so beautiful. In fact, what prompted this specific conversation was a moment on a strategic consulting call inside an experience that I host for my clients called The Modern CEO. And we were in one of these strategic coaching calls, and Elizabeth, our guest today, was reflecting on her journey and where she is now. And she made a comment about the space she has because of the way that she is running her business different. And I have had the opportunity to work and walk alongside Elizabeth as she has grown her business strategically, as she has built her team. And it is such a cool thing to experience and witness. And she went through some really challenging times, of course, through COVID, being a travel agency and a travel consulting partner. When COVID hit, their business came to a screeching halt. And the way that she navigated that and then came out of that and then had rapid growth is a great example of how you can go through something hard and then you thrive after that. And Elizabeth is going to share this journey with us, very specific, tangible things that you may want to think about and do, and her experience in going from a $2 paycheck to where she is today, running an award-winning travel consulting firm. Ever since she was a little girl, Elizabeth wanted to own a travel agency. Sure. She also went through phases of wanting to be a vet, a teacher, a Broadway actress. But after 20 years of being a librarian, another one of her dream careers, she took a leap of faith and founded Outlander Travel, LLC, which you might want to find to book your next trip at outlandertravel.com. I added that little bit there. Going on 12 years now, she's been helping people make their travel dreams come true while also mentoring and nurturing a team of 15 people do the same. Outside of work, she has a very supportive family in her husband and 2 almost grown sons. As a family, they also care for a bearded dragon, 2 dogs, and there is a cat that lives in their house as well, who sometimes acknowledges their existence. I cannot wait to hear what you take away from this conversation, whether it's a nugget about navigating a challenging season, whether it is something about how to clone yourself and multiply your impact, your time, and your money, or whether it has to do with stepping into the modern CEO role and getting more strategic. Elizabeth is living it, and this is an incredible conversation. Thanks for being here. Introducing Elizabeth. Elizabeth, thank you so much for being here. This is always so much fun to connect with you.
Thank you for having me.
Oh my gosh. It is awesome. And this came about, this conversation, because of a comment you made in one of the calls we were in together inside The Modern CEO. And you were reflecting on the growth of the business, your business, and how your role as a business owner has changed So I want to get to that in just
Okay.
a second. But first, let's tell people about what your business is.
All right. So I own Outlander Travel, LLC, official name. And we are a full service travel agency covering mostly leisure travel. We have a few corporate clients just to help pay the bills, but leisure is where our heart is. We really started with, and I say we because I have a wonderful team now, and I really feel like we're all on the same page and we all share this sort of vision. But we really love bringing people together through travel, whether they're people who already know each other, who are traveling together and get to share that experience together, or whether it's people who've never met each other and meet each other because they're traveling. With just that connection between people is sort of what drives us. And so we really started with a focus on family travel because I also feel very passionately about exposing young children to the world around them, the bigger world around them, not just the small world. And some people say, I don't want to travel with kids because they're too little. They won't remember it. They won't appreciate it. But it's not always about, do you remember seeing the Eiffel Tower? It's more about, do you remember the experience of being in a place that was different, where people spoke a different language and had a different culture and did things differently?
Oh my gosh, I have goosebumps just hearing you share that, because we took our kids on safari for the first time. We've been on a couple of safari trips, and we took them on safari for the first time when they were, well, my oldest was in college, but the younger two were in second grade and K4 or first grade in K4, somewhere in there. Yeah, it was K4 and second grade. And we were just reflecting with them on what's been your favorite trip ever. And they're like, oh, safari, of course. And they were, I mean, the K4, she was obviously young. And we've got stories that we tell her back, like, no, put your head in. Like, don't stick your head out of the Jeep when the lion's going by. But we laugh, and there's so much that comes out of it. And I completely agree. The
Yeah.
stories are incredible.
Yeah, my kids, we took them to Costa Rica when they were, I think, 6 and 8, if I remember correctly. And as we were leaving, I will try not to tear up when I tell this. As we were leaving, we were in the airport and they just burst into tears. And my husband and I were like, "What is happening?" And they were like, "We just don't want this vacation to end. This has been the best thing ever." And I was just blown away by that and having that time together. But then my oldest said something. I did not program this in any way, shape, or form. He looked at me and said, "Mom, I don't understand how we can go back because we're so different now. We've seen that the world is different and that there's so much more to learn about the world." And I'm not saying it nearly as well as he did at 8. And I just, like, I thought, well, this is exactly what I was trying to do, but I never said that to them. And I'd already started my agency by then, but at that point I was like, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. That I am on the path that was meant to be on.
Oh my gosh. I know you said that you were going to cry, but you made me cry too.
It just means so much to me because it's that moment where your kid gets it and you don't even know how you just did the thing that you thought would help, and in the end they get it completely. So yeah.
Oh, I love that. And they get it. You're just living a life and you set an intention. You're like, man, I think this is what it's all about. This is my purpose. This is what we're driving towards. And then you get that affirmation. That's
Yes.
pretty
Yeah.
gosh darn cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh man. So you have been growing your business for 11 years, right?
Yes.
What
Yes.
has that journey been like for you?
Well, and I had that special moment in my journey too of the pandemic, and that obviously affected my business hugely. So I think that,
Yeah.
I've felt all the things, and it's so wonderful to, I definitely tell anyone who has a small business of any sort that they need a network of people to talk to realize that all those things are things that we all feel. The imposter syndrome from time to time, the wondering if the next client will call, the wondering if we can handle all the clients who are calling, sort of those ebbs and flows are so normal. And when you first step into it, you don't really know if that's the case. And so for me, we had a gradual growth where I thought it was just going to be me for a while. And then I decided to take on some independent contractors, or rather they sort of decided to take on me. I was aggressively pursued by some very talented people to join me. And I was like, okay, I'd be stupid not to build this. So I sort of started building the business I always joke, I'm building the plane as I fly it. And it started as a very small plane and it's getting bigger and it's still flying. And every now and then we refuel in the air. We just don't really come down very much. Yeah. But the pandemic then brought us down and we were literally on the ground. And that, so I was able to take that time. We were about, I guess, about 8 years old at that point, and I was able to take that moment and rebuild the plane on the ground, like do the things that you just cannot do when you're in the air. So rather than sort of sit back, I said, I just have to keep moving forward. And I had actually started working with you and your program like a year before, not knowing what was going to happen, anticipating growth, anticipating wanting to move more into a CEO role and a little less into a day-to-day, operations kind of role. And then this happened and I just came crashing down. And so fortunately, I had just put myself in a position to take advantage of the resources of a business coach, of a coaching program, to figure out what to do next. And I literally made a list and said, these are all the things that I said I would do if the phone would just stop ringing for, we joke, oh, I would clean the house if I had time. And then the pandemic taught me, no, I'll never clean the house. That's not the reason. And I didn't want that to be the case for my business. I was like, well, I need to update the CRM. I need to create more automation. I need to be ready, because we also knew that travel is sort of, in today's world, and even in old world, travel is inevitable. We were traveling because we had to, because that was the only way to trade, to get the things that we needed. And so as we've evolved as a civilization, we travel for different reasons, but it's still in us, and the human need to travel and to explore is still there. So we knew it was going to come back, and it did. And so the last 2 years have been like riding a tsunami wave, trying to surf it, that there's sharks in. But it's been great, but scary and exhilarating. And so that sort of, it was almost like a slingshot. We were on the ground and then we got pulled back and shot back into the air really fast. And now that growth has been exponential, and I was ready to start hiring. I was ready to see, okay, I need this person, even though I can't, we're not there right now. I need this person for 6 months from now. So I'm going to hire them now so that I'll be ready in 6 months. And that is so different from the little person 11 years ago, the little me that was like, maybe I'll start a travel agency. It's so different, so much growth.
You are incredible. And now, like, award winning, tremendous growth. Didn't you, which year? There's a year, was it 2 years ago or a year ago, where you like wildly exceeded that tsunami wave, wildly exceeded, like, didn't you double, triple something growth?
Yes. Yeah. So we literally, last year to this year, my earnings this year grew, my personal earnings, by 50% more. So 150% of what I made the year before. And we're way ahead of where we were in 2019, which at the time was a banner year. Like, for the industry as a whole was a banner year, but definitely for us. And I thought, oh, can I keep this up? And then, when 2022 happened, and what we call revenge travel, basically this sort of concept of, I'm going to go somewhere because I couldn't for so long.
Exactly.
Yeah, dang it, I'm going to go. And because people are also booking those dream trips that they thought, I'll do that one day. And after 2 years of not being able to do anything, they're like, that's my first priority now, rather than my long-term goal. That's my first priority. So we're also seeing a higher spend on travel in general. And I'm doing it too. I mean, for my own travel, I'm like, well, it's time for me to go to to places that I have absolutely not been before, and experience different things. So.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. It's funny, when you were speaking about what happened during COVID, it took me right back to some of those early calls, because we hosted calls. I don't even remember what the schedule was, but during the season of COVID, we're like, man, things are kind of awkward and screeching halt in many cases for many people. And we decided as a community to show up for each other multiple times a week. We like took our calls so we could be there to support and navigate, like, okay, this came up, now this came up. Like, change was happening so rapidly and it was so unknown. So you took me right back to being evacuated from Ethiopia and sitting in an apartment, like, okay, we're going to talk more, in an apartment we rented temporarily in Chicago. And it was so quiet. And it's interesting because as you were sharing that, I went back, and then I also sort of propelled to present day, because many people are feeling effects of recession, but not technically a recession, but it feels like inflation, and people are pausing spending or spending differently, and behaviors are shifting right now. So for people who are in a space of, okay, it's not COVID, but there is something happening here that we cannot exactly pinpoint, but it's a struggle for us. What would you say to those people who are in a place of struggle right now?
I think that the important thing is to look forward and say, is there a way out? And there always is, whether you can see what that way is or not, and to keep moving. Like, even if you're not sure you're moving in the right direction, you're probably not moving in the wrong direction.
Yeah.
You may be going left when you should go right, but you can always correct. But to me, the key in all of that, and in any downturn, is to keep moving. If the phone stops ringing, you don't just stop working. You keep moving. And so even when it's something large like that, the important thing for me was I couldn't do the main thing that I thought my business was about. Like, there was no way to do it. It was not possible to do it. So what can I do to keep moving my business forward and to prepare for that future and what that looks like? And so I really started practicing much more strategic planning, which I had not been doing. Obviously, when you're building the plane, there's not a whole lot of
Yeah.
strategy, while it's flying. And that's still like where I'm now. It almost gave me a natural progression. So in that, I'd also say, and I don't want to sound cliche, but there are silver linings. There were so many silver linings to the pandemic, and there were so many terrible things as well. And me personally, my family, we've been through all of those ups and downs too, all through that. The isolation, all of those things that happen, that's real. But as long as you keep moving forward, don't ignore it, but keep moving forward with that, bringing that with you. I feel like that's how I got through to the other side. And there were a lot of people who do what I do who didn't make it through that. They changed careers. They went another path because it just, to stop doing the thing that they were doing that brought them so much joy, they couldn't find another piece of it to focus on at that time. So,
Did you ever consider pausing or stopping entirely? I mean, you were forced to pause, but did you consider?
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I'm a logical person, right? It's like, well, I'm not going to be making any money for a while, so maybe I should find a job. And literally my whole body went, no, that's not what you're supposed to do. Yeah. So I talked, of course, I have a partner, not a business partner, a life partner. And we talked about what this would look like. And his job was he was able to continue doing what he did and make money. And so it was like, well, we're not going to be traveling. We're not going to be, going lots. We're not going to spend a lot on gas. So maybe we can be just on this one income for a while, and you can really focus on, don't spend a lot, but at least, spend money very strategically on the things that will help you be ready for comes back. Yeah.
Elizabeth, and I'm thinking back to some of those conversations as well, and very logically, like, map out that budget, like you said. Look at, okay, maybe we do need a second income, or maybe we don't, and we can cut back on some expenses. I'm going to stay the course, and I'm going to work the foundation. But I think it's so beautiful that you looked at both the logical, and then you had the emotional whoosh, like that feeling come in, be like, no, this is what feels aligned. And I think it's important to look at both. I love that you did that.
Sure. Well, and this is a second career for me. This is the thing that I always wanted to do, but I never allowed myself to do it. So I had a 20-year librarian career. I was a librarian for 20 years, and I enjoyed that. I mean, it wasn't like that was just a terrible thing to do. I could have gone back to that, but at the same time, I was like, no, I did that. Now I'm doing the thing I love, and I've had all these affirmations that this is the thing I love and that this is the right thing to be doing. There wasn't a morning that I woke up and said, I don't want to do this. I've never felt that way. I've definitely been like, I would like to take today off. That would be nice. But I have never woken up and said, I don't want to do this anymore. So I think that was also that pull. It's like when I tried it in my brain, should I get another job? And no. I mean, if at
Try.
all possible, unless you absolutely have to in order to survive, no, you need to keep moving this job forward. There are things to do. There are things to be done, and you might need to do them without getting paid for them. And we've been through that. This is the sort of work that doesn't pay you right away.
Yeah.
So when I started, I had about 6 months of my very first check was $1.98 for, commission on a rental car. It wasn't a fast grow, but the nice thing is it's like a garden. Once you've got it planted and ready, and as long as you keep tending it, that it will grow and grow and grow. And you get, some new flowers and some new plants that you can introduce, but your base is always there. So
Oh my gosh, so cool. So you went from solo, what'd you say, $1.79? Was that
yeah,
it?
$1.98. Don't
$1.98.
sell me short. It was almost $2.
That's amazing. $2. We'll go with $2 for your first paycheck. Fast forward to today, you have a team, you have a strategy, you have profitability, consistent profitability. You've given yourself a significant pay increase because of that structure and strategy. What does that look like? What are some of the elements that you put in place to bring those things to life? And you mentioned like thinking ahead a little bit, which I freaking love, because we got to pace ourselves forward. But describe to us a bit more about that and the way that you saw that growth through.
I think some of it was actually in knowing how I was feeling. There's a point where you realize that you can't do any more work. So there's no growth is possible unless you bring in help. There's just no other way. And other people would tell me that too. They'd look at me and they're like, you really need help. And of course, I did the very first thing that I think everybody must do. Maybe I'm wrong, which is but I can't afford it. Like, how would I pay that person? How can I take responsibility for the livelihood of somebody else when I'm still not sure I know what I'm doing? And so to start with, I brought on independent contractors who were also building their own businesses, doing the same thing. And so we're sharing a brand, we're sharing a vision, we're supporting each other, leaning on each other's shoulders, asking questions, having that team environment that helps you grow. But they also had their individual businesses. So it felt like a nice step of, okay, I'm taking care of these people, but I'm not taking care of these people. They could go do this somewhere else if my world collapsed. And then once I felt comfortable in that structure, and I naturally, it's very weird because I'm an introvert and I generally prefer to work alone, but I'm also a very good mentor. And I'm very good. Like if I had a superpower, I would say it's picking really talented people. And I'm sure my team loves to hear me say that. But I'm just very good at recognizing when somebody is going to fit into a culture and also is going to be able to do the work, even if it's not work that they've done before. So as I started with a few independent contractors who sort of sought me out, and then other people would seek me out. And I decided rather than recruiting, I would just allow some organic growth so that I could feel more and more comfortable with it. Then I got to a point where I'm like, okay, here's our team, here's what we have. And here are the things, like we don't have anyone who's ever been on the continent of Africa. We don't have anyone who's ever been to Australia. We don't have anyone who's really actively selling the domestic United States. And so we were looking for, I started sort of thinking, this is where I want to focus on bringing people in. It hasn't always worked. Sometimes I accidentally find somebody else who does exactly what we do. But for the most part, by putting that out into the universe and saying, I'm open to listening, then we have filled in some of those holes. I've also told the team, hey, we don't have anybody who's been to the continent of Africa. And so in the last 2 years, several of us have gone to the continent of Africa somewhere. So at least we've touched it now, at least we know that we have some on the ground knowledge. And that's just one example. I mean, Antarctica is the same way. It's hard to sell something like Antarctica if you don't really understand the ins and outs of a trip like that. That we can't do it, but obviously we need that sort of experience. Bringing in people who speak other languages would be lovely for us as well. So, so looking at that growth and seeing where I needed to fill in some holes in just what we could offer our clients, then it came down to me. It was like, okay, now now I'm full
Yeah.
and I can't do anymore. And so I have to hire somebody. I have to bring on someone who I can make into a mini me. I need to clone myself. Somebody who
Mhm.
learns how I think, who can do all those things that I do. Maybe not do everything I do, but at least do most of them. And I actually had a VA that had started with me, a virtual assistant, but I purposefully chose somebody who was here locally so that eventually I could transition her if she was working out into an employee role. So in January of 2020, I took the big leap and I went to a payroll service and I brought her on the payroll part-time January 2020, 20 hours a week with the goal of making her 40 hours a week by the end of the year. And then I cut her back down to like 8 hours a week, but I kept her. Like all of my EIDL money, all of my PPP went into keeping her because over the years, she had become another version of me. And we definitely still think differently, but she knows how I would think. There are many, many times where she can answer a question for me because, and it sounds exactly like what I would say. She knows exactly how I think. So once that grew, then she got too big, too much was going on for her. So I brought on somebody else. And I was like, okay, what part of the job do you need help with? And she's like, well, booking the travel, that takes the most time. That's the most intense. Managing the agency is something that's more routine. So booking the travel is where I need help. So I brought in a full-time travel advisor. I said, you're going to come in to sell travel and nothing else. And then my assistant agency manager could then decide how much of that she wanted to do. Once she gave up the
Wow.
selling the travel, she wasn't happy. So we brought that back on, and I brought on an admin to help with the administrative side of things. So it's,
Oh
yeah,
my
just
gosh. So you have not only cloned yourself, which is about multiplying your time, your impact, and your money, but you've also enabled your team to clone themselves.
yeah,
They're multiplying their effort, which multiplies the organizational effort. This is music to my ears.
it's
Elizabeth.
so after years and years in corporate and in public libraries and in the public sphere. So I've worked both private sector and public. It's so nice to be able to say to someone, what would you like your job to be? Here are the
Yeah.
things we need to do. Which part of this do you fit into? And so now that's generally what I'm doing, is saying, I'm going to bring you in to do a couple of jobs, but I anticipate that eventually those will be 2 full-time jobs, and you'll need to sort of pick your path based on what you're really, enjoying doing, where your talent is. And those things are related to each other, but not the same.
Yeah.
So this person who's an admin is also doing our marketing. She may end up just really loving the marketing side of it, or she
Yeah.
may just really end up, loving the automation and admin side of things. And then we'll figure out what to do, with her. And what that means is I have very little turnover. I really haven't had very many, I haven't lost very many people. My attrition has either been, there's been a couple of people where the industry just wasn't right for them. They didn't have the right networking. They didn't have, it just wasn't right. And they're not in the industry anymore. It's not like they went to another agency or something like that. They've moved on to a different career. Or I lost a couple of people during COVID who really had to, they had to have an income, single parents or, whatever. They had to have something. So. Yeah.
Yeah, there's something in corporate, it was regrettable turnover. And then like, this is normal. Like, this is like, yeah, do we like it? No, we never like it when someone leaves, but you understand when someone's like, no, I'm changing careers, or I found this other passion, or, we're moving. Yeah, this is so dang good. As you look at everything that you've put in place, and how does it feel now? Like, what is the feeling, the mood, the tone when you go to work and you're moving through the day and you're building the company and strategizing and fulfilling on travel?
It's really exciting. I have to say, I think I just got to a point, and I think that probably was the statement in our call recently, where I was like, I think I'm now at the CEO stage. Like, I am now at that place. I'm not working toward it. I'm there. I'm not perfect in that role yet. I still have some work to do in it,
Yeah.
but I know that that's where I'm sitting. That's where the chair is. I'm still doing some other things, and obviously I do have to work on sales and systems a little bit, but in the end, now my primary role is making sure that the company keeps running. And I really, really like that. And I never want to stop selling travel. I would say at least 50% of every day is devoted to travel, sometimes even more, to booking travel.
Mhm.
But I feel like I have space to breathe. And that's it. I feel like I can breathe. I started watching television again. Like,
Ah,
I never had time for that. I was like, how do people sit for an hour and watch a show? Like, how does that even happen? And now I'm like, oh, welcome to Wrexham is coming back. I can't wait, you know?
oh my gosh, I
So
love.
I'm just sitting, I'm trying to enjoy more and more. I do have some, there was a lot of time where my kids were growing up where I feel like I missed some things. But at the same time,
Mhm.
I think they're very proud of me. They're 19 and 17 now, and they're still my children. I might have missed a few things, but they're still my children, and I've always been there for them in some way. I travel a lot. It means that I'm gone a lot, but sometimes I take them with me, and they're so grateful for that. So yeah, now being able to breathe and being able to say, oh, my son is coming home from school in 15 minutes. I think I'll go downstairs and make some tea, and I'll be there when he gets home so that I can talk to him. Just having that room to do that is wonderful.
Does your family see that shift in you also?
I think so. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think so. They haven't said anything because I think they also recognize that I do feel some guilt for not being there. So they don't want to draw attention to the fact that I wasn't
Aw.
always there. And I don't say that in sort of a I was a terrible mother kind of way. I feel like I was a very good parent. I am a very good parent, but there are times where I'm like, boy, I really wish that I could have been there, you know. But I told them that at that time too. I didn't just pretend like it wasn't happening, you know.
Yeah.
So they recognize that I've always felt that pull, and they respect that. And so they don't try to draw attention to it. But they definitely, they'll still come into my room at night and sit on my bed and want to talk about their day. And,
I
they're
love
my
it.
one son is 6'2". I'm like, there's no
Ah,
room, but come on in, let's chat. So yeah, it's so nice to be able to focus my attention 100% on them and not have things talking to me in the back of my brain about the things I didn't get done today. I've really learned to compartmentalize that a little bit more and not feel as desperate about it, because I'm not the only one with eyes on it anymore. I don't feel like I'm the only one responsible for it anymore. It's so
oh my
nice.
gosh.
It feels good to
Oh,
just say that. Thank you for letting me express
yeah.
that.
I'm loving all of this. It's so cool to hear you reflect on the shifts in the journey and that comment on, man, I have space now that maybe I did. And when you were in it before, when you were in that build stage, did you feel like you were like, oh, okay, I got to get some space? Like, did you feel like this is what you were working toward? Or did it evolve and reveal itself as you went?
A little bit of both, I think. Like, I was
Yeah.
tired, but I knew that the work needed to get done, and I loved doing the work. So, so it was sort of but I knew that I was building something too. It wasn't like I knew that I wasn't going to do that forever and ever and ever. There's no way to sustain that. I also think the pandemic taught me what it was to breathe again. Like, I did have more space then, and
Mhm.
that felt really good. And then I'm also getting older, and at some point you just say, I just need more time for myself than I used to need. I just have to take that step back. So all of those things, built up into that. I am thrilled with the hard work that I did for those first 10 years, good and bad, the pandemic, everything. I'm just so glad that I had that experience and that growth. And I'm so glad it's led to this. And was that purposeful? Sure. But did I always think that I would get there? No, not always. Sometimes I worried that I wouldn't, that I would just be running on the hamster wheel all the time. But as I really looked for opportunities, and I listened to my instinct, and I listened to the advice of other people who have been through things like this. I have mentors in the industry who have different business models, and I've taken pieces of each one and said, this is what I'm comfortable with. This is what I'm comfortable with. All of our businesses are successful with the business models that we have, and seeing that and knowing that even if I do it differently, it's probably not going to be wrong. It'll just be different,
It'll
and
just be.
embracing that was so important to me. Yeah.
Mm. As you think about the way that you deliver travel, what is the differentiator that your team comes together and rallies around?
That's such a good question. Honestly, our biggest differentiator is our passion. We love helping people travel. There are other people out there who feel that same passion that we do, but it absolutely shows in what we do, and we make a point of letting that show. We also want to be sure that that the experience really matches you. And this actually goes back to my librarian days and reference interviews. People will, ask for things, but they won't always be specific. And it's our job to make sure that we're really understanding what they want, and we're not jumping to conclusions about what they want.
Yeah.
Somebody can say, I want to go to Disney World, and another person can say, I want to go to Disney World, and they want two very different experiences. And
Yes.
so we take great joy and pride in drilling down into what why you want to go there, what you want to achieve while you're there, and how you want to feel when you get home. And there are people who come to us and that's a great example, because there's some people who do it as a rite of passage. Well, I have to take the kids to Disney World. We're never going to go again. I don't even really want to go, but we just have to do it. It's one of those things. And we love those people just as much as we love the people who go 3 times a year and want to go to every special event and want to try every different type of cupcake. And there's two extremes, and then there's lots in between, and we love all of it because each one makes that trip unique, and we get our excitement from making sure the trip matches their needs.
It's so true. And it's one of the things that I love hearing and doing work around is your values are coming through, your differentiators are coming through. But what does it actually look like when it comes to life? Like, because the action is what brings the value to life and gives it meaning. And I will echo that on the work that we have done with you and the most recent trip, that example is coming to mind with Morocco. I was like, I don't know, we just want to go to Morocco. I haven't spent the time to research. I know that there are professionals out here who know this much better than I do. And then I checked in with my mother and father-in-law, and they said, oh, well, Casablanca, we're going to be in Morocco. We should probably go to Rick's Cafe. Okay. I think that was our only ask. And then you came back with an incredible itinerary. We were like, oh, it feels kind of full. Should we cut a couple of things? I think this, because we looked at it and we're like, we don't know what to cut though. Feels
Right.
awful. You're like,
Oh, it's
okay.
amazing. Yeah.
Because it was so good and we didn't really know. And I knew, right, I've seen on Instagram, I've heard from people how incredible Morocco was, but I didn't really know what to expect. And it moved me. Like, I was floored at how incredible Morocco was. And that came through because of, we had that experience because of you. So, and you could just see end to end, your planning. We transferred all decision making over to pretty much Elizabeth. And we're like, you're like, oh, okay, I don't know, but I'll figure it out.
That's always fun too, because I'm like, well, you just don't complain because you didn't give me any feedback, but I can plan a great trip for you. You're
sure
not allowed to
did.
complain. So
Man, it was incredible. And you recently went to Morocco as
yeah,
well.
I just had it happen to get an opportunity a few months after you. And then it turns out it was a few months before this terrible tragedy that they've had recently. So I'm very glad that I got to see it. And Morocco is, I know that isn't the topic of this podcast, but I had no idea how peaceful Morocco is. The different people living together and the way they respect
Yeah.
each other. It's like everything that we try to get people to understand everywhere else in the world. And in Morocco,
Morocco is
this is
doing
just
it.
how we live. This is what we do. They will give you everything they have before they will take anything from you. I mean, it's just the most generous, wonderful people. And I was blown away, and it's a beautiful place. We actually we didn't send you there because it's so far, but we went to the Sahara because that was a thing for me. And I couldn't believe it. We get out of the bus after this long bus ride. Morocco is a very big country. Long ride. And go into our hotel, and we go through the lobby, and there's the Sahara, and it looks just like the movies. It's amazing. Just this beauty, the sand and the colors and the sunlight on it, and just an extraordinary place. So yeah, I think that that's the thing is opening up the world through, because I do this every day, I have contacts all over the world that I've accumulated through, the meetings I go to and the conferences I go to. And so I actually I know people. And so I can help connect you to the experience you want, whether it's, something really exclusive to something that's very normal, going up to the Eiffel Tower. Sure, I can do that. Making chocolate with a chocolatier with 8 million awards. Yes, I can do that too. They cost different things, but I can absolutely make both of those things happen.
This
So,
is awesome.
and you've even connected me with photographers, travel photographers who are, there's a network of photographers. So if you want a photography session in the place that you're going in Morocco or wherever, there's these people who can do this, and they do it all the time. And I know them now. I know how reputable they are. I know that they won't, take your money and run. I know that we're working with quality. And so I can recommend that and feel good about it. Yeah.
Elizabeth, what is your favorite trip, the most favorite trip you've ever taken? What
Oh, this
location?
is like asking me to pick my favorite
I
child.
know. I'm
I
sorry.
honestly, I mean, for different reasons. The first time I went to Greece, it stands out. I was in my 20s, and just that sort of the beauty of that country, the islands, being in my 20s, that it was just the right time to do that sort of trip. And I really loved that trip. The Costa Rica trip with my kids is probably one
Ah,
where I feel like we really connected. My business was a few years old, so I had been in that hamster wheel, and that was the first chance I'd really had to step back and let somebody else take care of me. And I was still basically a one-woman show, so I actually ignored my phones and my emails for a week. I forced myself to do it and focus. So I do feel, for many reasons, that is. But we've also, we've been to Europe with the kids a few times. It's definitely my trips with my family that are the ones that stand out the most. I get to go to a lot of cool places for work. Usually when I go, I'm working, I'm seeing things, I'm learning about an experience. So it's great, it's fun, but it is work. But when I've traveled with my family, that's when I get to just soak it in and be.
oh my gosh. What is, as you think about your strategic plan and what is next for the business, whether it's 1 year from now or 5 years from now, what's top of mind for you?
I think making sure that it can continue in some form. My kids haven't expressed an interest in the agency really, and so I now have some concerns that I just want it. I don't want it to live on. I don't want to. I don't want it to go when I go. And I would love to be able to step more and more away from the daily operations and enjoy the CEO role a little bit more. I'd love to grow it a little bit more. And so if in 5 or 10 years, that means that I need to sell it or I need to merge with someone else, or all of those things are possibilities. And that's really at the point, I'm at that point now where it's like almost thinking about what is my exit strategy? Not that I want to exit, but what is it? How does that look when I'm gone, or when I'm not doing this anymore? And I don't think I'll ever not do this. It's just, I just
Mm-hmm.
love it so much. But I definitely would like to take care of myself a little bit more. And I'm enjoying being able to do that more, and I want to keep that up. So that really is the plan, is growing it to a point where it can exist a lot more independently from me. I don't know if I will hire a CEO, somebody to oversee the business, or if it seems more likely that I would merge with another agency or other colleagues, and we would find a way to co-manage. But it's my
Mm.
baby too. It's a little,
Ah.
hard to think of
Ah.
it in any way other than how it exists right now. So I have to shift my thinking a little bit.
But I love so much of what you were saying. It's like, I don't know, it's in this realm of direction, but it could look like a lot of different things, which has worked well for you. You sort of
Mhm.
open it up to the possibility that magic is brewing, and boy, did you create some magic along the way.
Thank you. I'm very proud of it. Yeah, I do. I like to point the ship and then see see if we want to stop somewhere, see if we want to bring somebody on board. It just feels right to make sure the ship is going in the right direction and then let things happen. And that's how I like to travel too, right? It's how I like to live my life. I'd never be closed off to the opportunities that are there.
Elizabeth, that is the perfect place to bring us to a close today. Where do people find you? All the places for all the travel.
Yeah, so outlandertravel.com. And you do have to put in Outlander Travel, because if you put in Outlander, you'll get pictures of some very beautiful people in Scotland. But if you put in Outlander Travel, you'll get some very beautiful people in North Carolina. We are located in North Carolina, but we have agents all over the country. In fact, I have one agent who lives in Germany. You can reach out to us that way. All of our bios are on the website too. So if you want to talk to an agent who specializes in one thing or another, you can find us all there on our About page. We also have a little podcast called Fly Away. You can find it on our website, but you can also find it in all the podcasty places. And we publish weekly and talk about all things travel, usually about the things that we've just experienced, but also some travel news and the goings on around the world.
Thank you so much for being here. You're incredible.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
As we bring this conversation to a close today, I want to thank you for being here. And I also want to recognize that both Morocco and Libya have recently experienced some very significant events. We are sending our love to both everyone who is navigating and rebuilding and going through the cleanup after the earthquake in Morocco, as well as after the floods in Libya.